I'm bringing you 6 mistakes that your rookie idiot league mates are going to make. Starting off with the first mistake. That is going to be not knowing ADPs on your platform. Ladies and gentlemen, on the channel, I use composite ADPs over on 4for4. The thing that is nice about using multi-site ADP is I'm able to see where someone takes Christian McCaffrey in Underdog, CBS, ESPN, FFPC, NFL, Yahoo. The benefits to doing this is I'm able to pick up some later tier gap. Of course, the top guys like Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, those guys are going at the top no matter what the format is. But it starts to really get a little bit juicy when we start to get guys like a Patrick Mahomes, for instance, where Patrick Mahomes on CBS is going as overall player 24, overall player 23 on ESPN. Like if you're on NFL, going on 24, Yahoo's going at overall 40. So you can kind of start to see where the ADP gaps are on site to site. So if you're playing on ESPN, you're able to compare to, hey, where are people going on CBS? Where are they going on Yahoo? The part that makes me really excited about kind of looking at it from this holistic perspective is you're going to be able to see the ADP gaps that are developing on said site. And then we're going to be able to take advantage of that by building in extra depth or getting better pieces later on that we normally wouldn't be able to get. The second mistake that rookie level fantasy football players make is they go into a draft with a hard set plan. Listen, we talk a lot of strategy on this channel. We talk about hero RB, which is where you only take one running back in the first 7 rounds. We talk about double hero RB, which is where you pick 2 elite level running backs in the first 7 rounds. We talk about zero RB, where you take no running backs through the first 7 rounds. And then there's kind of like the robust RB, which is a lot of people like in the industry, where you kind of just absolutely hammer running back through the first 3 rounds. The thing is, if you go in with a hard set strategy, if an ADP value falls, if you think, hey, I'm going to do a hero RB build, you get Bijan Robinson in the first, and then you swing around to the second, and all of a sudden Jonathan Taylor falls to you in the second, but you said you were only going to do a hero RB build, does that mean that you're not going to take the value of a Jonathan Taylor falling? Or are you going to take a guy like a Nico Collins or Drake London? For me, that is why I like the first 3 rounds to be take best player available, rounds 1 through rounds 3. Because if you honestly take best player available, as much as I hate robust RB, the odds of you actually taking 3 elite level running backs in rounds 1, rounds 2, rounds 3, it's not very high. You're probably going to have to reach on your 3rd running back or the 2nd running back or however that's going to be. And so for you, highly recommend that you just take best player available, because once we take best player available, round 1, let's say we take a running back, round 2, we take a wide receiver, we flip around on round 3, and there's maybe an elite level tight end like Sam Laporta, or we maybe potentially draft a guy like a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes in the 3rd round, gives you a ton of flexibility to then kind of base rounds 4 through 8 on the rest of the additions in your draft that you're going to need, whether it is getting a tight end, whether it is getting a quarterback, whether it is absolutely building up that wide receiver depth. My 3rd rookie level mistake is not knowing your league settings, because like we said, when we've been doing a ton of underdog drafts here as recently, so if you want to draft with us over on Underdog, code Caleb100, the advantage is on Underdog, you actually have to start 3 wide receivers. It's half PPR, but you have to start 3 wide receivers. In your most standard fantasy football league, when you have to take 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, all of a sudden, you know, in that format, I don't need as many wide receivers. I do need some running backs. The value on a tight end, an elite level tight end in 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex is a lot more valuable. An elite level quarterback in that format is a lot more valuable than maybe having a ton of depth at wide receiver, just because you can only start 3 wide receivers each and every week. So I will say the 3rd mistake is not knowing your league format and settings, because if I do know my league format and settings, if there's extra bonuses, I can address and move players up and down my draft board based on already knowing the ADP pockets in this draft to then be able to take full advantage. My 4th mistake, and I wrote this down and I kind of laughed when I wrote this down, do not go robust RB. I don't know, there's a lot of people on the channel, a lot of you oldies, shout out to you guys, absolutely love you, but you guys have been drafting robust RB for the last 20 years, where running back, running back, running back. The amount of workhorse running backs that are in the NFL is declining like crazy. We now have running back by committees. And the other aspect is the injury concerns of these elite level running backs that you're having to take early on in ADP. Like, this is a chart of kind of just explaining the difference between the wide receiver and running back position for injuries. And that's my biggest concern when we're talking about just absolutely hammering the robust RB position, because yes, they are league winners. If you hit on 3 running backs that are league winners, you're probably going to win the league. The issue is those chance of injury on those elite level players a little bit higher than their wide receiver predecessors. And then you're a little bit concerned that if you might not be able to make that difference later on down your roster. My fourth mistake that rookie level fantasy football players make is they overdraft on the defense and kicker position. Yes, we all need a defense and kicker, but most of the weeks as a whole, you're going to be streaming. You're going to be playing matchup by matchup, because even if you like a defense like the 49ers, or you like a defense like the Baltimore Ravens, or you like a defense like the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to run into the Buffalo Bills. They're going to run into the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to run into the Philadelphia Eagles offense. And the issue that then arises is if you overdrafted them, you're missing out on some upside that you could do if you actually were streaming those positions. Now, kicker, it's kind of hard to predict who the elite level kickers are going to be each and every year, because you do want a high scoring offense, but you almost don't want too high of a scoring offense that they're going to be able to get in the red zone, but they're not going to be able to score. Like, that's really where the kickers get their bread and butter. The defense is really on the matchups. So highly recommend that you literally just save the kicker and defense for your last two roster spots. And I would not be rostering more than one kicker and one defense. Fifth mistake that I see rookie level fantasy football players making: do not take an elite level second QB, even if you already have an elite level QB, because this year, when we look at the overall ADPs that are happening in the quarterback landscape, and we talk through the top 12 quarterbacks right now: Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels. Listen, the guys that come after that: Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford. Like, there are a lot of upside shots on these QB2s. The issue is, are you really going to be starting Matthew Stafford over a guy like Lamar Jackson or CJ Stroud? Most likely not, because I know it's fun to play matchups, but the only reason I would be playing matchups is if my main starting quarterback got hurt, and then I had to take a shot on two of these later round guys, add them on my waiver wire team, add them to my waiver wire, of course, add them to my team, because I was that desperate. Now, a lot of people are going to say, hey, Caleb, we saw last year with a Joe Burrow, we've seen Anthony Richardson. Like, if I didn't take an elite level second quarterback, my team would be hosed. Well, even if we're getting down to the spot of like Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson at QB 20, QB 21, there's a lot of upside. So assuming that not all the teams in your league are going to be taking two quarterbacks, I would much rather use that extra roster spot on a position of value like a running back or wide receiver that I'm going to be able to throw into my lineup, that even if that running back, let's say it is a handcuff for either one of my running backs or another one of my teammates' elite level handcuffs, if they all of a sudden get to be a starter, that's someone that I can instantly throw into my lineup. Whereas if it's my backup quarterback, the odds of them actually getting in, besides like a bye week or some crazy type of injury, is very slim to none. So highly recommend, do not take an elite level second quarterback if you already have an elite level quarterback. And to be honest, almost all the top 12 quarterbacks, maybe you could argue that, Trevor Lawrence and Jaden Daniels towards the back end of the top 12 aren't elite level quarterbacks, but I would say you're most likely going to get an elite level quarterback in this draft. So just do not overspend on the quarterback position. And my sixth mistake that I see is a lack of roster construction. Now, we've talked about how you can build the team through the running back position, what your strategies are going to be, but this really comes back to knowing not only the settings, not only the ADPs, but then being able to take advantage of it. So if I've already drafted, let's say we're in the 8th round, I have already taken 4 running backs because I went robust RB and I didn't listen to Caleb, and I went 2 wide receivers. All of a sudden, then I have to start making, with these last 2 picks, I have to then decide, do I get a tight end? Do I get a QB? I might have missed out on some serious value because I didn't understand the ADPs, that I could have gotten some pretty high upside shots on running back later, could have been drafting some wide receivers, maybe thrown in one of those elite level quarterbacks, tight ends earlier on in the draft. All of a sudden, I'm looking at my team and I'm not loving the overall upside. And when you don't love the overall upside, it's usually because your roster construction puts you in such a position that you're sitting in round 7 and you're like, I have to draft a running back because I hadn't drafted any running backs previous to that because I went absolutely 0 RB. Or I have to draft a wide receiver because I don't have enough wide receivers and they're absolutely flying off the board. And then once you do that, you get caught in the end of a huge crazy run on a position. You lose out on a ton of value and you kind of waste that pick because you're just trying to fill that roster spot and you didn't properly roster construct your team. Listen, this isn't all a science because every draft is different. Every home league is different. That is what I've learned. Home leagues, it's not like we're just drafting here on Underdog with a bunch of other dudes that love fantasy football. There's crazy stuff that happens, but the advantage is if you know these specific mistakes that are being made and you can address it and be well prepared and researched, then you can absolutely demolish your fantasy football draft and start your season on a high note. So if you want to win your fantasy football championship in 2024, hit that like and subscribe button. Appreciate you guys so much. On the way to 3,000 subscribers. The advantage is I'm going to be answering all start sit questions during the season, during live streams. I'm going to be providing you start sits rankings week in, week out for running backs, wide receivers, It's going to be a really great time. I want you here in the community, so hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. It helps me out a ton. Best free way to support the channel. Here are 2 more videos you can tune in and check out on the channel, but I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.